"Pack up, come home with me," the rancher said after seeing an Apache widow feeding her kids scraps. The town sat quiet under the wide sky, the kind of place where days passed slowly and people learned not to ask too many questions. Dust clung to boots and wooden porches, and the wind carried stories no one wanted to hear. Life here was simple on the surface, but hard underneath. Most people were busy surviving their own problems, which made it easy to ignore the struggles of others. The rancher rode into town early that morning. He came once or twice a week for supplies, feed, tools, and sometimes just a cup of coffee at the small diner near the road. He was a man shaped by long days and open land. His shoulders were broad from years of work, his face weathered by sun and wind. He did not talk much, but he noticed things. Growing up poor had taught him that silence often hid the truth better than words. As he tied his horse near the general store, he saw something that made him pause. Behind an old building, partly hidden from the main road, sat a woman with 3 small children. They were seated on the ground, close together. The woman had her back slightly bent, as if trying to shield them from the cold air. In her hands was a small cloth bundle. She opened it carefully and divided what little food she had into even smaller pieces. The rancher did not move at first. He watched quietly, not wanting to startle them or make the moment uncomfortable. The children waited patiently, their eyes fixed on the food. They did not complain or reach out. When each child received their portion, they thanked their mother softly before eating. The food looked like leftovers, scraps that others had thrown away without thought. Something tightened in the rancher's chest. The woman's clothes were worn but clean. Her hair was tied back neatly, though strands had escaped. Her face showed exhaustion but also strength. She did not look defeated. She looked careful, alert, and proud in a quiet way. This was not someone who had given up. This was someone doing everything she could with almost nothing. People walked past the alley without stopping. Some glanced over and then looked away. Others did not notice at all. The rancher recognized that behavior. He had seen it before. When trouble felt too big or too uncomfortable, people pretended it wasn't there. He finished his errands, but the image stayed with him. While buying supplies, he asked the store owner casually about the woman. The man shrugged and said she was an Apache widow. Her husband had died some time ago, and she had come to town looking for work. There wasn't much available. Some folks didn't trust her. Others just didn't care. "She don't beg," the store owner said, "keeps to herself." That detail mattered to the rancher. Later, while loading his supplies, he saw the woman again. She was helping her children stand, brushing dust from their clothes. One child stumbled and she steadied him gently, speaking soft words the rancher could not hear. There was patience in her movements and love that needed no explanation. The rancher remembered his own childhood. His family had not had much either. There were days when meals were thin and winters felt endless. He remembered his mother dividing food carefully, pretending she was not hungry so her children could eat. That memory had stayed with him all his life. It had shaped the kind of man he became. He mounted his horse but did not ride away. Instead, he sat there for a moment, wrestling with himself. He was not a rich man. His ranch kept him busy, and every extra mouth meant more work. But the land provided enough if managed right. And he believed that a man's worth was measured by what he did when no one was watching. He rode a short distance, then turned back. Approaching slowly, he dismounted and kept his hands visible. He did not want to frighten her. The woman noticed him immediately. She pulled her children closer, her eyes cautious but not afraid. "I don't mean no harm," he said simply. She nodded but said nothing. Her gaze stayed steady. "I saw you feeding your kids," he continued. "There's a place in town that sells warm bread this time of day. Would you let me get you some?" The woman hesitated. Pride and need fought silently in her expression. Finally, she nodded once. He returned with food and handed it to her, stepping back to give space. She thanked him quietly. The children ate slowly as if trying to make the moment last. They did not speak much. The rancher did not push. He understood that trust took time, especially when life had taught someone to be careful. Before leaving, he told her where he would be for the next few days, working the ranch outside town. "If you need help," he said, "you can find me there." She nodded again, but he could not tell if she believed him. That night, the rancher lay awake longer than usual. The wind moved across the land, and the sounds of the animals settled him, but his thoughts kept returning to the woman and her children. He wondered how many nights they slept cold, how many meals they skipped. He wondered how easy it was for suffering to hide in plain sight. Over the next few days, he saw her again in town. Always the same pattern: quiet work, careful movements, children close by. She cleaned where she could, helped carry goods, did small tasks for little pay. Some people were kind, others barely acknowledged her. Each time the rancher felt the pull stronger. On the fourth day, winter clouds rolled in early. The air turned sharp and the temperature dropped. The rancher knew what that meant. Nights would grow colder. For those without shelter, it could be dangerous. He rode into town once more, not for supplies this time, but for her. He found her where he expected, behind the building, wrapping the children in thin blankets. One of the younger ones coughed softly. The sound made his decision final. He dismounted and stood before her. "You can't stay here," he said, not unkindly, "not with the cold coming." She looked up at him, defensive now. "We will manage," she replied. Her voice was steady but tired. He nodded. "I believe you would, but you shouldn't have to." She studied him carefully, measuring his words. Life had taught her that offers often came with hidden costs. "I have a ranch," he said. "There's work to be done. You and your kids would have a roof, food, warmth." Silence stretched between them. Then he said the words that changed everything, not loudly, not dramatically, but with calm certainty. "Pack up. Come home with me." The woman did not answer right away. She looked at her children, then back at him. In her eyes were fear, hope, and a deep weariness from carrying too much alone for too long. This was the moment where everything could change or fall apart. And the rancher stood there, ready to accept whatever answer came, knowing that some chances only came once in a lifetime. The woman did not give an answer that day. After the rancher spoke, she thanked him quietly and said she needed time to think. He understood. Trust was not something built in a few moments, especially for someone who had already lost so much. He nodded, told her where the ranch was again, and rode away without pressing her. That night, the woman sat with her children in the small shelter they had found near the edge of town. It was barely more than a roof and 3 broken walls, but it kept the wind off their backs. She wrapped the children close and listened to their breathing as they slept. The offer replayed in her mind again and again. A home, work, safety. Words like those sounded almost unreal after months of uncertainty. She remembered her husband. He had been strong and proud, a man who worked with his hands and loved his family deeply. When he passed away, the world did not stop for her grief. Life became harder instead. Some people turned away. Others treated her like a burden. She learned to stay quiet, to take only what was offered freely, and to rely on herself as much as possible. By morning, the cold had worsened. Her youngest child shivered despite the blanket. That was when she knew she could not ignore the rancher's offer. Pride could not protect her children from winter. She gathered their few belongings into a small bundle. There was not much to pack. Each item had been used carefully, repaired many times. She told the children they were going on a journey. They did not ask questions. They trusted her. The walk to the ranch was long. The land stretched wide and empty, but there was a quiet beauty to it. The children grew tired and she rested often, holding their hands and encouraging them. When the ranch finally came into view, her heart beat faster, not from fear but from uncertainty. She did not know what waited for them, only that she could no longer stay where they were. The rancher saw them before they reached the gate. He was repairing a fence, hands rough with work, when he noticed the small figures approaching. He stopped and waited, wiping his hands on his trousers. When they stood before him, dust on their shoes and hope in their eyes, he nodded as if he had been expecting them all along. "You came," he said simply. She nodded. "For my children." "That's reason enough," he replied. He showed them a small cabin near the main house. It was simple but solid, with a stove, beds, and thick walls to keep out the cold. The children explored carefully, touching everything as if afraid it might disappear. The woman stood quietly in the doorway, unsure how to accept kindness without feeling like she owed something she could never repay. The rancher brought food and showed her how to work the stove. He explained the chores she could help with: cooking, cleaning, tending to small tasks around the ranch. There was no pressure, only clear expectations. He spoke to her with respect, never raising his voice, never talking down to her. That night, for the first time in many weeks, the children slept without shivering. The woman sat awake for a long time, listening to the crackle of the fire. Her body slowly relaxed, though her mind remained alert. She had learned that safety could vanish quickly. The days that followed were not easy, but they were steady. The ranch was full of work from sunrise to sunset. The woman learned routines quickly. She cleaned, cooked, and helped wherever she could. The children stayed close at first, but soon began to explore the land, their laughter returning in small bursts. The rancher watched from a distance. He did not interfere unless needed. He believed that dignity mattered, and he wanted her to feel like she belonged, not like a guest who could be sent away at any moment. Word spread in town about his decision. Some people approved quietly. Others questioned it openly. A few warned him he was taking on trouble. He listened without argument and returned to his work. He had made his choice. The woman noticed the looks when they passed through town together. She felt the weight of judgment, but it no longer crushed her the way it once had. She was no longer alone. One afternoon, as they worked side by side repairing equipment, she finally spoke more about her past. She told him about her husband, about their life before loss changed everything. The rancher listened without interrupting. When she finished, he simply nodded and said, "He must have been a good man." That simple acknowledgement meant more than long speeches. Slowly, trust grew, not from grand promises, but from shared effort and quiet respect. Meals were eaten together. Problems were faced honestly. The children began to help too, learning responsibility without fear. As winter settled in, the ranch stood strong against the cold. The woman looked out across the land one evening, watching her children play near the firelight. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to imagine a future that did not begin with fear. The rancher stood nearby, fixing a gate, aware that his life had shifted too. He did not see himself as a savior. He saw himself as a man doing what needed to be done. Neither of them knew where the road ahead would lead, but for now, they were walking it together. Life on the ranch slowly found a rhythm, but peace never comes without challenges. As days passed, the woman began to understand that safety did not mean comfort all the time. Work was hard. Mornings started before sunrise and nights ended only when the land finally rested. Still, there was a sense of purpose in every task. Each bucket carried, each meal prepared, each small repair done made her feel useful again. The rancher treated her fairly. He never spoke loudly, never rushed her, and never reminded her of the favor he had done. That mattered to her more than food or shelter. She had learned how quickly kindness could turn into control, but here, respect was steady. Slowly, her guard lowered. The children adjusted faster than she expected. At first, they stayed close to her side, unsure of their place, but the land seemed to welcome them. They learned where to walk, where not to go, and how to help in small ways. One gathered eggs carefully. Another helped stack wood. The youngest followed the rancher everywhere, watching him with quiet curiosity. The rancher noticed this and allowed it. He showed the child how to feed the animals and explained things patiently. He never acted annoyed. He remembered being young once, hungry for guidance and stability. Not everyone shared his view. One afternoon, a neighbor rode up to the ranch. He leaned against the fence and spoke plainly, warning the rancher that people were talking. They said he was inviting trouble. They said he was taking responsibility for people who weren't his concern. The rancher listened, nodded once, and returned to his work without answering. His silence was not weakness, it was certainty. The woman overheard parts of these conversations. Each word felt like a stone added to her chest. She worried that her presence might cost him friendships, business, or peace. One evening she approached him while he was fixing a broken hinge. "You don't owe us this," she said softly. "If we cause problems, we can leave." He stopped what he was doing and looked at her directly. "You're not causing trouble," he said, "and this is your home as long as you want it." The way he said home made her swallow hard. She nodded, unable to speak. As weeks passed, winter deepened. Snow fell heavy one night, covering the land in white silence. The woman woke early, worried about the animals and the children. She found the rancher already outside, clearing paths and checking shelters. They worked side by side in the cold, breath rising in the air, sharing the work without words. That day, she realized something important. This was not just a place of survival. It was a place of shared effort. Later that evening, they sat by the fire, the children asleep nearby. The woman spoke again about her past, not just her loss, but her fears. She told him how hard it had been to stay strong when everything felt uncertain. She admitted she feared trusting again, feared that safety could disappear overnight. The rancher listened carefully. When she finished, he said, "Nothing is promised in life, but while you're here, you won't face it alone." Those words stayed with her. In town, opinions continued to divide. Some people softened, seeing the children healthy and the woman working honestly. Others stayed distant. The rancher did not argue with them. He believed that time would speak louder than words. One day, an unexpected problem arose. A storm damaged part of the ranch, destroying fencing and threatening the livestock. The work to fix it was heavy and urgent. Without hesitation, the woman stepped forward, organizing meals, helping where she could, and keeping the children safe but involved. Her calm presence helped steady everyone. The rancher noticed her strength. He realized she was not just someone he had helped, she was someone who made the place better. When the storm passed and repairs were made, there was a quiet moment of relief. They stood together looking over the land, tired but proud. That night the rancher admitted something he had not said aloud before. "I didn't plan on any of this," he said, "but I'm glad it happened." She smiled faintly. "So am I." Trust had grown, not suddenly but firmly. The woman no longer felt like she was waiting for the ground to disappear beneath her feet. The children laughed more freely now. The ranch felt alive in a new way, yet both knew that change always brings tests. The world outside the ranch still existed, and not all challenges had been faced. But for the first time since her husband's passing, the woman felt something close to peace. And for the rancher, the land no longer felt empty at the end of the day. They had not planned this life. But together they were building it, one honest day at a time. Spring came slowly, as if the land itself needed time to believe winter was truly over. The snow melted in quiet patches, revealing damp earth and tired grass beneath. Mornings grew longer and the air softened. For the first time since arriving at the ranch, the woman felt the change not just in the weather but inside herself. Her days were full but no longer heavy. She woke early, prepared meals, and planned the work ahead. She had learned the ranch's needs, understood the animals, and knew where help was most useful. The children had routines now too. They washed, worked, learned, and rested like they belonged there, which they did. The rancher noticed the difference. The place ran smoother. Meals were warmer. The children were stronger. There was laughter where there had once been only wind and silence. He had lived alone a long time and never realized how quiet the evenings had been until they were not anymore. One afternoon, trouble arrived without warning. Two men from town came riding up the road. They did not smile. Their voices were polite but firm. They spoke of rules, of land boundaries, of questions being asked. They said some people believed the rancher was doing something improper by keeping the woman and her children there without formal agreement. The woman heard the conversation from a distance. Her heart dropped. Old fear returned fast and sharp. She felt like she had before, temporary, unwanted, one complaint away from being pushed back into nothing. That night she packed quietly. She did not wake the children. She folded their clothes, wrapped what little they owned, and sat on the edge of the bed. Her chest felt tight, but her decision felt familiar. Leaving before being forced had become a habit in her life. The rancher noticed the light on in the cabin late and walked over. When he saw her packing, he understood immediately. "No," he said calmly, "you're not leaving." She turned, eyes full but steady. "They came today," she said. "I don't want to cause trouble. You've done enough." He shook his head. "You didn't cause this, and you're not the problem." She stood still, unsure how to argue without breaking down. He continued, voice firm but kind. "People will talk no matter what. I won't let fear decide how we live." She searched his face, looking for doubt. There was none. The next morning he rode into town with her beside him. It was not an easy ride. Eyes followed them. Whispers moved like wind through the street. But the rancher dismounted in front of the local office and went inside without hesitation. He spoke plainly. He explained the work arrangement, the living situation, and his responsibility for the land. He did not raise his voice. He did not defend with anger. He spoke with honesty. The discussion lasted longer than expected. When he came out, his face looked tired but resolved. "It's settled," he said. "They won't bother you again." The woman exhaled slowly, like she had been holding her breath for months. Life returned to its rhythm, but something had shifted. The woman no longer felt like she was standing on borrowed ground. She began to plan beyond the next day. She planted a small garden near the cabin. She taught the children simple lessons in the evenings. She even began fixing old things instead of replacing them, believing they would stay. The rancher saw her confidence grow. He also felt change in himself. He talked more. He listened differently. He found himself thinking about the future in ways he never had before, not just crops and fences, but people. One evening, as they sat watching the sun drop behind the hills, the woman spoke quietly. "I never thanked you properly," she said. He shrugged. "You don't need to." "I do," she replied, "not just for the help, for seeing us." He did not answer right away. Finally, he said, "I saw people who needed a chance, same as I once did." The children ran nearby, laughing, chasing each other through the grass. The sound felt like proof that something good had taken root. Later that season, sickness passed through town. Many families struggled. The woman helped where she could, preparing food, watching children, offering quiet comfort. People who once looked away now nodded at her with respect. Some even thanked her. The rancher noticed how naturally she stepped into the role. She did not seek attention. She simply helped. As summer approached, the land flourished. The ranch stood strong. So did the people on it. One night, after a long day, the rancher sat alone, thinking about how close he had come to living a life untouched by others' pain. He realized something important. Helping them had not taken something from him. It had given him more than he knew he was missing. Inside the cabin, the woman watched her children sleep peacefully. She no longer feared morning. She no longer measured kindness like it might disappear. This was not the life she planned, but it was the life she chose to protect. And for the first time in a long time, she believed it would last. The years that followed did not pass quickly, but they passed with meaning. Life on the ranch settled into something steady and honest. Seasons came and went, each leaving its mark on the land and the people who lived there. What once felt uncertain slowly became familiar, then trusted. The children grew taller and stronger. Their laughter no longer sounded careful or quiet. They ran freely across the fields, learned how to work with their hands, and understood the value of responsibility. They knew what hunger felt like once, and because of that, they never wasted food and never took comfort for granted. The ranch gave them room to grow, but more importantly, it gave them roots. The woman changed too, though the change was gentle, not sudden. Her eyes no longer searched every corner for danger. Her shoulders no longer carried the weight of constant worry. She still worked hard, but now she worked with purpose instead of fear. She was no longer surviving day to day. She was living. The rancher noticed these changes quietly. He was not a man who spoke often about feelings, but he observed everything. He saw how the children looked to the woman with trust and pride. He saw how she managed the home with care and fairness. He saw how the ranch itself seemed more alive, as if it responded to the presence of people who truly cared for it. Town visits became easier. People who once whispered now greeted them openly. Some apologized without words through actions instead. Work offers came. Friendships formed slowly. Trust, once broken, took time to rebuild, but it did rebuild. One afternoon, while repairing a fence together, the rancher asked the woman a simple question. "Do you ever miss leaving?" She thought for a moment before answering. "I miss the idea of what I thought life would be," she said, "but not the life I had." He nodded, understanding more than she knew. As the children grew older, they asked questions about their father. The woman spoke honestly, sharing memories without bitterness. The rancher listened too, never feeling threatened by the past. He knew that love did not disappear just because time moved forward. There came a day when one of the children asked the rancher if this place would always be their home. The question caught him off guard. He looked at the land, the house, the people who had become part of his daily life. "As long as I'm here," he said, "you are too." The answer was simple, but it carried weight. That night, the woman stood alone under the wide sky. She thought about the road that had brought her here, the loss, the hunger, the fear, and the moment a stranger chose to see her not as a problem, but as a person. She realized something important. Help had opened the door, but choice had kept her here. She had chosen to stay, to work, to trust again. The rancher stood nearby, watching the stars. He thought about how close he had come to riding past that alley and never stopping. How easy it would have been to mind his own business. His life would have been simpler, quieter, but emptier. Neither of them spoke, but they did not need to. Time continued its work. The ranch grew stronger. The children learned trades, values, and respect. The woman became someone others turned to for guidance and kindness. The rancher found himself surrounded by something he had not planned for but deeply needed, a family built not by blood but by choice. Years later, when people spoke of the ranch, they did not talk about land or cattle first. They spoke about fairness. About a place where people were treated with dignity. About one decision that changed many lives. The woman never forgot where she came from. She taught her children to notice those who were struggling, to offer help without judgment, and to remember that strength often hides behind silence. The rancher never called himself a hero. He would say he did what anyone should. But those who knew the full story understood the truth. It takes courage to stop when others walk past. It takes strength to open your home when the world tells you not to. On a quiet evening, long after the hardest days were gone, the woman sat on the porch watching the sunset. The children were grown now, talking and laughing nearby. The rancher sat beside her, comfortable in the silence they had earned. "This place saved us," she said softly. He shook his head. "You saved yourselves, I just gave you a chance." She smiled, knowing they were both right. The sun dipped below the horizon and the land rested. The ranch stood as proof that one moment of kindness, spoken simply and acted upon, can echo through a lifetime. And that sometimes the words "come home with me" mean far more than a place to stay. They mean belonging.